Hi, I'm Brian Tibbs, and I'm the author of The Hacker Method, where I'm going to show you how, even on limited income, you can break free from the paycheck to paycheck grind to build a multi-million dollar net worth.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Get ready for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Join hundreds of real estate investors for networking, learning, and growth. Be sure to mark your calendars for April 24th and 25th of 2025. Hello and welcome to episode 479. Many people believe that building wealth requires a high income, but my guest today, Brian Tibbs, proves otherwise. Despite earning just $9.20 an hour during his 16 years as a missionary in South America, Brian built his multi-million-dollar net worth through real estate by the time he was 44. Now managing $16 million in assets, Brian is the author of The Hacker Method, where he shares the principles that helped him escape the paycheck-to-paycheck trap and achieve financial freedom. Today, he's here to discuss how anyone, regardless of income, can start investing and take control of their financial future. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Fill us in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
I actually started investing even as a teenager. So I bought my first duplex when I was in college. And the motivation behind that is I just didn't want to pay rent, and I couldn't really afford to pay my entire mortgage. So figuring out how to get around having to do either one of those things, I decided to get a duplex. And so that's what really kind of planted the bug in my mind is, listen, I could live for free, essentially. And then when my wife and I decided to really change directions, I thought I was going to be a business owner, a business person, investor, but we decided we wanted to do something else. We wanted to give to others rather than just be focusing on ourselves. So we decided to move to Guatemala sight unseen in 2005. We said to ourselves, we could do anything for a year or two. We ended up staying for 16 years. But during that whole time, just kind of that idea of I don't want to pay rent transitioned into, okay, I know that the nonprofit is not going to provide for our retirement. So we have to figure that out ourselves. And so we began to build what is now the Hacker Method over trial and error, just many years of trying to figure out how are we going to transition from this someday to where we're not destitute and relying on others, to where we can actually build a retirement where we would have, we didn't expect to have big wealth, but we wanted to at least be able to make ends meet after there was no more income coming in from the nonprofit.
Take us through that hacker method that you mentioned step by step. It's an acronym, so tell us what it stands for, and then take us through it step by step as it applies to your situation.
After we were done with our 16 years, we're starting to announce it to everybody that we cared about and we're working with. And a lot, the natural answer is, well, what are you going to do next? And that was kind of an uncomfortable answer because, there was two rules in the nonprofit world. We were doing church planting, faith-based church planting. And the first rule is don't talk about money. And the second rule is don't talk about politics, right? And they would ask, what are you going to do next? And it was an uncomfortable thing to say, well, we've built financial freedom. We're not going to go do anything next, right? And I remember one specific conversation was with a young man from Venezuela. And he was just dumbfounded that a missionary that doesn't make very much money would be able to do that. And he said, how did you do it? And I was like, I don't really know. I've never talked about it out loud. It's just all in my head. And he said, do you think I could do it? And I was really taken aback. Like, of course, if I can do it, you can do it. You're an intelligent young man. You all these capacities beyond me. And then he said, would you show me? And that's what got my wheels turning as like, okay, maybe there's something here that could be of help to people. And as I had that similar conversation, not the same, but with other people, I was like, okay, I need to sit down and figure out how did we do this? Because it really is pretty remarkable. And that's what gave rise to the hacker method. So hacker, every letter in hacker stands for one step in the process. That after the fact, I went back and kind of discovered how we did it and tried to put it in a way that people could understand. So the H in hacker stands for hack your lifestyle. We, as Americans specifically, there's a lot of people that think that only people who make 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000 a year can build wealth. Well, we are trained from infancy beyond that. You look at your paycheck and you say, wow, look at all this money I have to spend on myself. And what you have to do if you want to build wealth, especially if you're on limited income, is you have to say, look at this paycheck. Wow, how am I going to make this paycheck multiply itself? And you have to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like an investor. And that's what we did. So we essentially refused to play the consumer game, buying cars on credit, taking vacations on credit cards, buying big fancy houses for ourselves and just suffering through paying the mortgage payment every month. We essentially figured out ways to hack our lifestyle to get rid of all of those big ticket items and then invest a large percentage of our small paycheck every single month to where it would begin to snowball and build wealth. So that's the first letter anyway. And that's kind of like the foundation of the hacker method is stop consuming and start investing.
That hack your lifestyle, is that akin to like the FIRE movement?
Yeah, certainly there are some similarities. And honestly, when I began to write this book, I'm coming right out of the nonprofit world and I wasn't even really aware of the FIRE movement. If somebody would have said, what does FIRE stand for? I was like, something hot you warm your hands over, right? So, but the biggest hack in the hack your lifestyle section is house hacking. And I think that is a FIRE movement concept, but basically refusing. So something I always like to tell people in 1950, the average new built home was 950 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Today, it's 2,400 square feet, 4 bedrooms, two or 3 bathrooms, right? With a 2-car garage. And in 1950, the average family size was like 3.6 people. Now it's 2.5 people. So for the 2.5 people in our homes, we are building homes that are as big as the entire home for each individual from 1950. And so the voracious capital consumeristic appetite is I need a bigger house and I need more rooms and I need all this kind of stuff. And of course, that's why housing has gotten so unaffordable. So now we have to have 2 incomes to be able to afford all this stuff. So house hacking is finding a piece of real estate that you can own and live in and rent out a portion of it to cover your living expenses, to cover your mortgage and your utilities. If you can figure that out, the average American spends 30% of their paycheck just on their housing. If you can eliminate that and invest that 30% over the long term, that's enough to make yourself a multimillionaire.
When you talk about house hacking, I've had many conversations on this podcast over the years about house hacking. And I just got to say, I mean, that is the best way to get started in real estate investing and start building your financial future. I've had guests who have not only covered all of their housing costs because they're renting out a room or renting out another unit or 2 units inside a multifamily property, but they're also creating additional income for themselves. So yeah, I'm 100% in favor of house hacking. Love it.
So that's why that's the first step in the hacker method is get out from underneath that biggest expense that you're going to have and turn it into actually an investment property, turn it into an income property.
Let's keep going. What's the A in hacker?
So even after the house hacking, there's lots of other things like how to maximize your credit cards, not pay interest, but earn the points and your vehicles. I have this whole acronym for vehicle ownership called Logic Vehicle Ownership, but that alone can make you a multimillionaire as well if you follow the Logic Vehicle Ownership.
The logic of vehicle, break that down in a nutshell for us.
The number one reason why people buy vehicles is out of the emotion that they get from owning that vehicle, right? Like my son, his dream car is a certain series of a Corvette. And that's all emotion because it's got terrible gas mileage. You drive it off the lot, it loses a ton of value. And, it's expensive to insure, all that stuff. So if you trade your emotional vehicle buying habits for logical buying habits, that can make you a multimillionaire. And LOGIC all stands for something. So real quickly, L is lose the loans and the leases. O is insist on over 30 miles per gallon in gas mileage, whether that's electric or just an efficient vehicle. G is get in at 7 years. So buy a car that's 7 years old. It's lost most of its depreciation, but it's still a good vehicle that you're going to need a ton of maintenance. So get in at 7 years and get out at 11, because after 11 and on down, that's where you get more of the maintenance expenses. I is insist on reliability. So get a vehicle that's not going to be in the shop all the time. And then C is kind of a bonus letter, convert your vehicle to an income generator. So you could be an Uber driver or you can Turo your car. So it's kind of a bonus one. It's not for everybody if they need their vehicles a lot, but that's another way to convert your vehicle to a logic vehicle.
I think in the next 5 years, we will see people not even owning cars and having a subscription model, which will save them tons of money on vehicle upkeep, and just get on your app, have an autonomous car come take you to your destination. I think that that's where we're headed. And I'm looking forward to that, because that will reduce people's car expenses by anywhere from $400 to $1,000 a month per car.
Huge expense. And then I would say even like the next step up from that is own one of those cars and let it go out and generate fares for you if there's an option for that, right? If you can own, what is that, the Tesla cab or whatever, and it can just go pick up people while you're at work. I mean, our cars sit idle like 90% of the time. So if there's a way you can get your car working for you, then that's how you can also build wealth.
Keep going with the rest of the letters there.
The second letter is A, allocation budgeting. So I've created this concept called 50-40-10. And there's some other formulas out there. I think there's like a 50-30-20 and some others, but this is the model that we use in our family. So we say 50% of your income is to spend. You have to spend. There are expenses and you can't live in misery. 40% of your income is to invest, and 10% of your income is to give away to make the world a better place. 50-40-10. And the biggest kickback I always get, 40%. There's no way I can invest 40% of my paycheck. Well, go back to the chapter on Hack Your Lifestyle. If you follow just the first 3 hacks, house hacking to cover your housing expenses, logic vehicle ownership, never pay loans or leases on a vehicle, and never pay interest on your credit cards, the average American, that adds up to 40% of their paycheck. So if you will master those 3 things, boom, you've got 40% of your paycheck that is now available to be invested, right? And the 10% piece, we talk a lot about building wealth, but the happiest people I've ever met are the people who are giving away a big chunk of money, because if all we want to do is accumulate money, I think that does something negative to our soul. So it's really important to always keep in mind, hey, I am blessed, even if it's a modest income, and I want to bless others that have been that are less fortunate than me.
Make the distinction about pre and post tax. How does this break down? Is this after you pay your federal tax or income tax, or before?
I do the 50-40-10 post tax. And for most people, if somebody listening to this is earning minimum wage, you're probably not paying very much tax. You're probably paying the Social Security and Medicare. But yeah, I say it's post tax. And I also talk in the book about coming up with side hustles in the Hack Your Lifestyle. And so in that one, I'm saying your net income post-tax, right? So don't worry about all the income and expense. Just get your net number to calculate how do I split up my 50-40-10.
We're up to C.
So C and K come together. Cash is king investing. And not that you have to invest with cash like Dave Ramsey style. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that bring on the mentality. So one of the things that I always like to say is the investor is the only person on earth that doesn't have a boss, right? Who sits on the board of the corporations? They're the biggest investors. Who is in charge when you're buying a piece of real estate? It's not the seller. Well, except in maybe 2020 and 2021. Maybe they were the boss during those 2 crazy years. But the rest of the time, it's the buyer. I don't like the house. I'm going to go to the next one, right? The investor is the one that's in charge. So if you have the cash available to begin to make investments, you're the king, you're in charge. And you have to begin to bring on this mentality instead of being a consumer, instead of being a consumer of stuff that's going to drain your wealth, you become an investor and you're taking your cash and you're throwing it around and you're making an impact. So cash is king investing is just introducing the concept of return on investment, infinite returns, which actually that's in the next letter as well, and just really getting your mind wrapped around the idea. This is something that's really key for me, especially coming from the nonprofit world, is you can be greedy in the sense of I'm going to hold on so tightly to my money. I'm never going to put it at risk because I don't want to lose a single dime. I think that's a form of greed. But your ability to open up your hands and let your money leave your immediate control, your savings account, your FDIC insured account, and let it go to work, that is a form of like releasing some of that greed that a lot of us suffer with. Like we're so paralyzed by the what ifs that we're never going to make an investment that's going to have an impact. So Cash is King investing is teaching people how to strive for at least what the S&P 500 is going to get you, and then grow to that next level and begin to try to beat the market on your returns.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB & Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. Save the date for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference happening April 24th and 25th of 2025 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This event is the perfect place to connect with fellow real estate investors, gain valuable insights, and elevate your real estate game. With a lineup of expert speakers and numerous networking opportunities, you won't want to miss it. Using the cash that you've saved through the H&A method to actually invest in your first deal, if you were a missionary making $9.20 an hour, how did you even generate enough for a down payment?
My first 3 deals, I only had $2,500 out of pocket. Why? Because I didn't have any more. That's all I had. Now, this was back in a different era of the ninja loans, no income, no job, no problem. And I think I must have been an FHA loan. It was like 3.5% down payment, something like that. One of those crazy. And I remember it was a 3-2-1 buy down. So they gave me a better rate the first year. And that's what they qualified me on, even though in 12 months, the rate's going to go up and the payment's going to go up, right? So I just did all these creative things. So that was my first deal. My second deal, I borrowed $10,000 from my grandpa for the down payment, let it sit in my account for a few months, and then I went and bought my next deal. And then my third deal, I worked out a deal with the seller where I actually worked for him to pay off the down payment and then finance the rest. And so, those weren't easy to find, but I was determined I'm going to add property. And then by then, the equity creation and the debt pay down and all that stuff began to work its deal to where I could 1031 exchange and take a duplex and convert it to a fourplex. And that's what started the whole snowball.
Now, were you doing some of this while you were a missionary out of the country, or were you back in the country when you started?
Yeah. So we would come back to the US usually once a year for maybe 4 to 6 weeks. And every time I came back, when I was in the field, I was 100% dedicated to that and focused on that. But I'd come back to the US, I'd look around at my portfolio and see, is there anything that's kind of like getting stale that I need to get rid of, or an opportunity, or there's too much equity built up or whatever. And so just when we came back on that rotation is when I would do work. Now, occasionally I would do things when I was overseas, but I tried not to do that. This was very much a side deal all along.
Cash is king. And then what's next with the E?
E stands for exponentiality. So the idea on exponentiality is, and I know that that's probably not a word, but the idea is begin to grasp the concept of, okay, I'm going to invest some money, I'm going to get returns, and you want to get to the point to where you get all of your original capital back out of the investment, but you still own the investment. So then you convert into what's called infinite returns, right? So exponentiality. If you want to see your net worth rise exponentially, you're getting really good at investing in smart investments that are going to perform well, get your capital back, let that asset continue to produce, then take that capital, go invest it somewhere else, and just watch the snowball. I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, whoever invented interest was smart. Whoever invented compounding interest was a genius. The compounding effect of strong annual return on investment gets to a point to where it's just exponential. And that's what you want to move towards. So I always like to say that building wealth is similar to forming diamonds. So diamonds need two things. They need time and they need pressure. In the investing world, we need time, the same thing. You need time. And the pressure is in the form of high returns on investment, which means you can't just stick it in a CD and forget about it. You have to work at it. You have to analyze your portfolio. You have to rebalance. You have to think about what you've got your money invested in. You need some diversification, but you need to also be somewhat aggressive. And then put that over time and then good, strong returns. That's going to create that exponential growth.
How long did it take you, Brian, to get to that exponential growth part?
Just like everybody else, I was subject to the market cycles. So we were in Argentina in 2006 with the bubble and 2007 with the like something's happening here, and 2008 when everything fell apart. And so we had to ride through that. And that was a scary time. But then 2013, 14, 15, 16, all the way then, and then COVID, okay, it's all over with COVID. Well, nope, now it's going to accelerate. So we had some benefit of those market cycles as well. But, it's kind of like that thing. I'm an overnight success 30 years in the making. I started in 1996 when the market was flat, rents were soft. And, so I was through that cycle too. But, I was 44 years old when I looked at my wife. I was like, we don't need to work anymore. We were in Brazil at the time, and just everything had grown to where we had the asset net worth and we had the cash flow coming from the properties that was strong enough that we can retire.
What does R stand for?
So R stands for 4 letters. So the first one is review. And that's kind of like what I was talking about a little bit ago when you're building wealth like forming diamonds. You're wanting to push for a high return on investment every year. And so you need to review your investments. If you're in multifamily, you need to take a look. Is there maybe a better asset class out there? Or is there a better way of doing this? Or should I stop managing it myself, hire a manager? So review what you're doing. If what you're doing is not working very well or not getting you the returns you want, you need to rework it. Rework it and then analyze it, review it again and see how it's going. But then here's an interesting one. If it is working, have the discipline to stick with it, or there's an R word for this, repeat. So I have a story in the book about my football coach when we were in middle school. We're very sophisticated. He said, hey, if a play works against the defense, just keep running it over and over and over till it stops working again, right? So real simplistic. So same thing. Sometimes people who are investors or entrepreneurs, we kind of have the shiny object syndrome and, I want to chase storage, or, I want to go do this, or I want to go do that. If what you're doing is working, have the discipline to stick with it. And then number 4, and this is the very end of the book, right? It's reward. Sometimes I see investors that get so good at investing and so dedicated to it that they're not willing to harvest some of the money that's coming out of their investments to enjoy it and to reward themselves. And I think, what are we if we are just like these machines that are producing wealth and we don't give back to make the world a better place and reward ourselves and our families? I think there's something happening to our soul that's not a good thing. So reward yourself. And what I say is, if you have a big windfall, like you sell a building and you have a $500,000 profit, do the 50-40-10. Put 50% of that in your spending account, reinvest 40%, and give away 10% to make the world a better place. So that's R. You
and your wife have reached a point where you have that financial freedom. By using the hacker method, you've created a life where you don't have to work. So what do you do? How do you find purpose?
At the age of 44, I guess we were 45 when we moved back. We moved back from Brazil back to the United States. We're based out of Phoenix now. And for that first year, I didn't do much. I managed the investments like I always had been, but I just didn't go get a job or anything like that. And it drove me nuts. So in 2023, I decided, okay, I'm going to double down on the real estate thing, and I want to get really good at this. And so now we have started to expand our portfolio, and I've got pretty lofty goals. I want to continue to see this thing grow. And we also I wrote the book as well. That was another thing that I needed to do to kind of have a challenge or have a mountain to climb. And then we started an investor community for people who maybe are unlimited income or maybe not necessarily unlimited income, but wanting to begin to invest to create that financial freedom. And so we talk about the hacker method, but we also just coach each other and support each other through the journey of trying to break free. A lot of us were trained by our family, not intentionally in a bad way, but trained to just consume everything that came in. And so there's a lot of work that we need to do on our mindset and goal setting and all that kind of stuff to learn how to form diamonds or build wealth, right? Put time and effort at getting those good returns. So the community is all about that.
Tell our listeners how they can find out more about you. Please hold up your book too, so those watching on YouTube can see it. And how can they join the hacker community? Don't hold it up yet because it's camera's on me, but how can they join the hacker community as well?
It's theunexpectedinvestor.com is our website. And if you go to theunexpectedinvestor.com/community, that's where you're going to find all the details on that. And it's an opportunity to come in. It's low cost to come in. It doesn't matter what experience you have. If you have no investments, you have no stocks, or you have 5 homes, it doesn't matter. We have people all in that whole range that are in the community and we work together. So if you're interested in that, go there, click on the button to schedule a call. And I'd like to sit down with you for an hour just to talk, see if you're a good fit for the community. You can also find me on social media at Unexpected Investor on all the social media channels.
Do hold up the book and tell people where they can find it.
The book is available. The Hacker Method book is available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, everywhere where you can buy a book online. You can get a paperback version or the hardback.
What's your favorite hack or app?
My favorite hack is the house hack. We've gotten to the point now where we don't have to. But if my wife was open to it, I would totally house hack again. And there's several times we've got this room I'm in right now could be a studio apartment. And I bring it up every once in a while. Hey, let's convert it into a studio apartment and stop paying our mortgage, kind of a thing. So that's absolutely my favorite hack, house hacking.
Brian, thanks for coming on the show today to talk about how you got started as a missionary, not making very much money, but you were able to build this world of financial freedom that you and your wife are now enjoying. And thanks for writing the book too, to share your method with our listeners and people out there. I'm sure it's going to do a lot of good, and I really appreciate you coming on the show to share it.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's a lot of fun to talk with you.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. And remember to save the date for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference on April 24th and 25th of 2025 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's going to be an event you won't want to miss, packed with invaluable sessions and opportunities to connect with like-minded investors. Keep listening for more updates, and we look forward to seeing you there. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.